The Matrix-12 was, and still is, one of the most preeminent synthesizers with amazing capability.
This 40-year-old synthesizer still sounds just as amazing as it did day one, and does things that are so inspirational for music creativity.
It was the pinnacle of synthesizer design and technology. It's just taken it all to a higher level.
The keyboard people want to play the Matrix-12.
It's the one synthesizer. If I'm going to play on a synthesizer, it's the one I go to.
After all these years, the musicians are turning back to that technology and are saying it's a richer sound, it's a more nuanced sound.
These weren't just tools. These are musical instruments. They have character and personality.
Then you give it to a great musician and you hear this great music. It's just, how can you ask for a better life?
I just turned 19 years old, and Tom Oberheim came to Cal State Dominguez Hills, which was a university that had a great electronic music and recording program, and I hung out there a lot. In fact, was teaching some classes. He came down and I gave him a demo of the Synth clavier and showed him what we were doing with it. And it never occurred to me to actually have a real job, and yet Tom offered me one. So at 19, I left college and went to Santa Monica and hung with the folks at Oberheim.
I was just blown away by Marcus's knowledge of this, everything in this studio. He was 19 years old and he knew the Synth clavier, he knew they had a big Moog, he knew that, and I said, I gotta hire this guy. So I did.
It was like being a kid in a candy store, right? Be able to dream up what you want in a synthesizer and actually affect what happens.
So I hired him, and for 5 wonderful years, Marcus contributed to just about everything that came out of Oberheim, all the way up to the machine that was just beyond anything that anybody else had done in analog synthesis, the Matrix-12, and that was the pinnacle of all the machines that Oberheim did up to that point.
And Tom Oberheim, thankfully, gave Michel Doidic, the other principal engineer, and myself almost free rein to explore what could be possible. So we got into new processors and multiple processors, and then we worked with Doug Curtis on whole new chips that could do new synthesis that we wanted to do, and dreamed up the whole matrix modulation to be able to have really the power of modular synthesizers, which was really what inspired all of us from the beginning, in a polyphonic instrument.
I think in 1973 or 1974, I saw an ad for a company, an integrated circuit company. They started a contest. The contest was that somebody would take their technology and design some kind of electronic circuit. Months or a year later, they said, we have a winner. The winner is Doug Curtis. In those days, Doug was a student, I think, at Northwestern. Well, and I was very interested. I called him up. I found his name, got a hold of him. We started a friendship.
So we're at Northwestern. I think we had just graduated, and Doug's latest iteration of a synthesizer was big, and for some reason he felt that it was absolutely important to show this to Bob Moog. So we just simply drove from Manhattan to Buffalo, drove up to the house, rang the doorbell. Bob Moog answered the door. And I was thinking, this is crazy. This is really crazy. But he answers the door, and he is just as hearted as Doug is. I mean, it's like, hi, I'm here to show you my synthesizer. Oh, I want to see it. It was just very cordial, you know, and I'm thinking, ooh. And that was the first time we met Bob. Bob Moog was the center of gravity for the industry.
So when I joined Oberheim, which was in 1980, Doug Curtis was already a famous guy to me. I'd heard about these Curtis chips. They were key to Oberheim synthesizers and sequential, and in fact, through the 80s and 90s, it was almost hard to find a synthesizer that didn't have Doug's brilliance in it. I don't know if I've ever met someone quite like Doug, because it's so rare to find someone who's the smartest guy in the room, truly brilliant, knows so much about so many things, but also happens to be the nicest guy in the room.
So I had an idea to make an accessory unit called a programmer. And I went to Doug and we talked about it, and he designed this chip. And it was Doug's first paying job. I'd say from then on, every Oberheim had some kind of Curtis chips in it.
Doug made a point of, as toward the end of his life, he wanted to own every synthesizer that had his chips in it. But we had 2 of the Matrix-12, and he was happy about that. I think he was very proud of it.
So this particular Matrix-12 really is special. This is one of 2 that were Doug Curtis's personal instruments.
Marcus called one day and he said, you know, I know you have these 2 Matrix-12s, and I'm wondering if you would think about donating one of them to the Moog Foundation, which has been hit hard by the hurricanes of the last season. It just felt to me like a right thing to do, and like a thing that Doug would have done. He'd be nodding his head. He'd be saying, yeah, it's the right thing to do. And I think he'd be very happy that in some way it connects him back to Bob.
The connection is so special in that Doug and myself and Tom Oberheim, we all were heavily influenced by Bob. And Doug Curtis would be so thrilled to see how this synthesizer, instead of, sitting in storage, could be put to use to really help the future generation of dreamers and synthesizer makers.
I hope that whoever gets this instrument has many, many hours of enjoyment and discovery, creativity, and pride in what they own. It's an honor to have this instrument.
Not only is this Matrix-12 fully restored and sounding amazing, this is the only Matrix-12 that has Tom Oberheim's signature, as well as my signature and Michel Dwadik, the other designer, on the back of this unit. And of course, even more importantly, was Doug Curtis's personal instrument. And all you have to do to own this is buy a raffle ticket. Actually, buying many raffle tickets would improve your odds even more. And it's not just about winning the synthesizer, which is going to be a wonderful thing for someone to own and cherish. It's about what good that raffle ticket does in supporting the Bob Moog Foundation. Please buy a raffle ticket.